Hello, and welcome to Hall Pass. My name is Reggie King. Now, if you're watching this, some of you right now might be wondering, okay, what is Hall Pass? What is this? That's a good question because I'm in the process of also figuring out what this is myself. What I know that I wanted to do was I wanted to continue and create a forum where teachers, educators could come, where we could share stories, where we could talk about some of the insane, crazy things that happen in the realm of education that sometimes we're not necessarily able to talk about, whether that be dealing with parents, whether that be dealing with students, whether that be dealing with some of the challenges that come with curriculum. And my hope with this is to create a safe space where teachers can come, they can be informed, they can hear, they can laugh, maybe even cry, because I think on a day-to-day basis, we go through a vast array of emotions dealing with all the things that we have to within the classroom. I was in the classroom for 18 years. I have now transitioned out of the classroom and I'm working in ed tech. But one of the things that I love is that I still very much consider myself an educator. I still spend a lot of time teaching and informing. What I like to say is that my classrooms just look different now. But starting off with this first Hall Pass, I again hope that this can be something. I didn't want to make something that was going to be really, really long because, again, one of the challenges of being an educator is a lot of us, we don't have a lot of time. There are so many different things required from us. If you are like I was when I was teaching, you're working beyond your contracted hours. You're getting to school before the students even get there. So you can set up, so that you can prep, so that you can catch your breath. You're staying after school. Maybe you're doing after school tutoring. Maybe you are just simply preparing for the next day. But you're working all of these hours, and it is hard to sometimes find those moments where you can unplug. And when you get at home, you want to get away from all of that educational material that you go through within a day. And a lot of us don't have time to continue to pour into learning about our craft and learning more about it. Many of us do, but finding those times can be hard, very far few and in between. So with this, I'm hoping this is something that you can listen to on the way to work. You can listen to as you're prepping for your day. And again, my hope is that many of the educators out there, if you're following me or if somebody shares this with you, which I hope, give us your input, give us your feedback. Let's start having these discussions. Let's start having these talks. And I also hope that it informs those who are not in the classroom, those people who don't know what really goes on in education, those people that when you see certain, like my current district right now, fighting for pay raises, and you see people, oh, you knew what you signed up for when you became an educator, or you guys get the summers off, and not really understanding what it is that we do. So I'm hoping that Hall Pass is able to provide some more insight into all of this. So with that being said, with this first one, we're going to have story time. So I hope you love stories. If you know me, if you've been around me, if you followed me on social media, you know I would typically share a lot of the stories of things that happened in the classroom. Now, this particular story didn't start in the classroom. This story starts with a recent presentation that I had. And I was having this presentation and it was in person. And as I was talking to this particular teacher, we start to have a spirited back and forth. This teacher was talking, and one of the things she kept saying over and over again, she kept saying, my students can't do this. My students can't read. This material is too challenging. They can't. And as I was standing there, it started to trigger something for me. And it started to take me into how I came about a certain rule within my classroom. And I'd like to very quickly share that with you now. So when I first started working with Orange County Public Schools, it was during a time when they were going through a teacher shortage. And you had to, at that time, I believe you had to pass the general knowledge test if you were an out of field teacher. So I had never taught a day in my life. I had never worked in a class other than doing some tutoring programs or things like that. And once I got that passing score, I was thrust right into a classroom. I believe my first classroom, I had up to 30 fifth grade students. And so I was trying to do anything I could to get prepared for working within a classroom setting. Now, I had worked with kids before. I worked in undergraduate programs back in college, but these were more so like tutoring. I had never been with students from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, having to teach all of the different curriculums, having to teach math, science, social studies, all of those different things. Had never done it. So I wanted to come in, hit the ground running. So a couple of things I did was I read some books that I'm sure a lot of you beginning teachers have. I definitely read Ron Clark's book. I read The First Days of School by Harry Wong and I believe his wife. And these were great. So I read all those books. I watched all of the required movies you have to watch before you start teaching. And that's definitely Lean on Me and The Principal with, I think it's Jim Belushi. So like all of those different things, because that's what I thought, teaching would necessarily look like. Like you're going to come in, it's going to be Lean on Me. They're going to be playing Welcome to the Jungle. You're going to have to turn around the school before the state testing. Like that was my impression of what education was going to look like. And thank goodness it looked nothing like that. I inherited that classroom with those 30 students. And I actually started off using the behavior system that the previous teacher had. On the board was all 30 names of the students. And at the top of the board, it read, bad boys, what you gonna do? So I was like, all right, it's pretty catchy. And I initially started using that. And like, you got in trouble, you got a check mark or whatever, and the check mark would lead to something else. And I kept it up until one day I had an observation. The principal came in, saw the board, bad boys, what you gonna do? I was like, you got to take that down. We can't use that. So I was like, all right, fine. I need to come up with my own set of classroom rules from scratch, using a little bit more of what I know now. I knew the first thing, to me, classroom management is so important. You could be the best teacher ever. You could know the book front to back. But if you can't get the students to, especially on the elementary level, to listen when they need to engage when they need to be able to have some type of reward/discipline system that they actually care about, I don't think you can truly be effective. And it's a very, very delicate art. It's a very delicate balance. So I wanted to come up with some rules for my classroom. So initially, I was trying to think of like, what are some rules I should come up with? And I was like, all right, how about I'll come up with 10 classroom rules. I was like, 10 commandments worked for somebody way, way, way back when. Maybe it'll work for me. What I found was the problem with having 10 rules, especially for fifth graders, was they could not remember all the rules. So there would be certain times when somebody would do something. Johnny, you just look what you just did. Tell me rule number 8. Johnny would sit there, raise your hand to talk. No, that's rule number 2. Keep going. Always ask permission. No, that's rule number 4. So like, I realized that at that time I had too many rules. And I'm curious to hear from some of you, like if you went through a similar situation. So what I ended up doing was I narrowed it down to 5 rules within the classroom. And hopefully at another time I can talk about some of the other rules that I put in place. But one of the things I realized very, very early on was students, when they wanted to be able to not have to do anything and they could stop, they would say, I can't. Mr. King, I can't do this. And that's why hearing that word from that teacher sent me back thinking about this particular time in my educational journey. When you say can't, you automatically place a ceiling on what you can do. And once you have that ceiling, there's nowhere to go but down. And so you stop trying to conquer whatever that might be, to jump whatever that hurdle is. And I realized very, very soon, okay, I have to stop them from thinking that. I'm a big believer in that words have power. You know, whatever you say, whatever you speak can come to fruition. And so I told my students from here on out, like, you cannot say that word. Like this is on the same level as cuss words. And if you taught in elementary, middle, or high school, you've heard some cuss words. You've heard some words that shouldn't be. So I was like, this is on the same level as that. I do not want to hear this particular word, because we're not going to place a ceiling. You know, I think one of the biggest things, one of my favorite saying is, you're going to always shoot for the stars. If you miss, you'll land on a cloud. We're going to go as far as we possibly can go. And so instead of saying I can't, they would have to say, I haven't learned how to do whatever it is yet. And I think I took some of this, being a fraternity guy. You know, one of the things we always had to learn was excuses. If anybody, Divine Nine, you'll know what excuses are. Excuses are tools of incompetence used to build monuments of nothing. Those who use them seldomly amount to anything. So I think what I was trying to do was to take that crutch away from my students so that they could not say that. And think about in our day-to-day lives. Think about times where you've said you can't do something. Like, I know, you know, there's people, I can't learn a second language. I can't learn how to swim. And the moment you say that, think about, like, did you still try and do it? Like, I know a lot of people to this day living here in Florida that can't swim. And it always like blows my mind, because we spend so much time, whether it's swimming, whether it's going to the ocean. And that is why that rule became so crucial to me. So as I had that talk with that teacher, and she was saying that I had to collect myself, I had to catch my breath and go back into teacher mode. And we talked about what are some of the different strategies she could start to use to open those doors for her students again. So that is how I came up with, to this day, is probably the number one rule I had while I was in the classroom. And I'm curious, as I said, I want to use this as a forum. Please share with me in the comment section. Tell me about what are some of the rules that you devised, or was there a golden rule that you had in your classroom? Was there an experience that led to the creation and formation of that rule? How did it benefit you? Did you have to tweak it? I know with me, for that rule, it stuck. There were some other rules that came and went, but that was one that I always wanted. Because even when they left my class, I wanted them to carry that with them, that you could do, I would always tell them, you could be whatever it is you want to be, whatever your goal is, you can achieve it, but you have to understand that there's going to be a certain amount of work, a certain amount of dedication that goes into you reaching it. And using that word can't's not going to help you get there. So please share with me, or if you're not an educator, you can share this out, but talk to me. I would love to hear what was a golden rule that you used in your classroom. Let's continue these conversations, and I hope to talk to you all again soon on Hall Pass. Thank you.